Hello, hello, hello. This is Elena here. Hi, thank you for being here. If you are new here, I talk about books. As you can see, I talk about books. Mainly, I love fantasy books, I love romance, queer books. I love books. I'm not really your nonfiction girly if that's what you're looking for, but stick around and you'll hear all about fiction. Yay! I would like to say thank you for your patience with my videos. My computer has been on the fritz and I have recorded videos, and then my computer has decided that it cannot open them in my editing platform, so I don't really know what's going on there. Anywho, thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience. So I am going to be talking about my top 5 books that I have ever read, and I'm very excited to see what you all think, if we have books in common that are in our top 5, or even top 10, or just books that we liked. And if you hated any of these, let me know. I'm quite curious to see why, if you do. Comment your top 5 books down below. Maybe I'll get some new recommendations. That would be great. I love books, and I love buying books, so let me know. I'm going to give you some very quick books that did not make the top 5, but I still want to talk about because they're beautiful. So, first is Cleat Cute by Meryl Wilsner, a lesbian soccer book. Oh, it's so good. It's so good, you guys. Please, please read it. It is kind of high on the spice level, so if you're not into spice, maybe do not read it. I listened to the audiobook of this, which, by the way, listening to a romance novel as an audiobook is a very interesting choice. Use your brain before you do it, unlike what I did. Up to you though. Totally up to you. And another book that I really loved that didn't quite make the list is Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher. It's right here. I love it so much. It's so good. Gay Arthurian tale about gay teenagers and princesses and princes and knights and lords and stuff. It's really good. You should definitely read it. It's really good. I wrote a whole essay about this book for my one of my classes. Maybe I'll do a little essay. What do they call them? Video essay. Hi, I'm neurodivergent. I forget things all the time. But maybe I will make a video essay about why this book is so good. Anyways, and last but not least on this list is The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Guys, I just love this book. It's so sweet. This older dude, I don't really know. He's like 50? 40? I don't know, something like that. He is a social worker and he works with magical children who are in the foster system and orphanages, and he goes to this orphanage right here, check on the children, basically, and it is also a love story, and it's like a found family story, and it's so cute. You should read it if you haven't. You probably have though, but if you haven't, please do, because it's really good. Okay. So, we are going to be talking about number 5, Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Meet Alex Claremont Diaz, son of the President of the United States, America's bad boy hottie. He's an aspiring lawyer and wants to be a future politician. And how could I not mention this boy's sass? He is very sassy. When an unfortunate and a very public mishap takes place at an English royal wedding, Alex is forced to have a fake friendship with his self-proclaimed nemesis, Prince Henry of England. At first, Henry seems to be everything that Alex isn't. He was born rich and privileged and, well, white, very white. Because, well, English royalty. They're very different. Alex is very outgoing and personable, and Henry's is very reserved and posh and uptight. But what may happen when Alex realizes there's a lot more to Henry than what Henry portrays for the outside world? And what happens when Alex learns about Henry's gayness? We will find out reading this book. Can these two keep a transatlantic love story under wraps for the whole world? Can they do that? Can they keep it under wraps from the entire world? I don't know. I mean, I do because I read the book, but you may not know, and if you want to know, you should read the book. Although I did fail to mention that this is a very, very popular book and also very popular movie, so you probably already know what happens. But in case you don't, you should read it because it's very good. So my favorite thing is I loved the camp and the cringe. I am one for camp and cringe if it is done correctly. Also appreciate that in the world of queer media, in the world of queer media, we don't get a lot of camp and cringe storylines. It's usually just drama. So I appreciated the camp and cringe and joy. Not to say they don't have hardships. They do. They have hardships and setbacks. But overall, it's a very light tone and really happy, and I love it. And I also loved when Alex was talking about his sexuality and trying to figure out who he was and how he identified. There's one part where he literally was like, would a straight person think this much about their sexuality? Would they really spend hours a day wondering? Probably not. And I was like, damn. If 8th grade me had read this book, she would be on a whole new level. But I digress. So spice, I would say about 3 out of 5. There's not a ton of spice scenes, and they're like fairly graphic, but not like too much. But there's something about them that just felt like a lot. I don't know. I'm also I'm not in love with spice. I don't need it. So perhaps if you're a prolific spice reader, you're like, that was nothing, which understandable. My rating for the book was a 4.5 out of 5. I don't feel like I need to give a book 5 stars for it to be one of my favorites. I really liked it, and you may also really like it if you like silly little gay romances that are in a politically idealistic world. I wish Ellen Claremont Diaz was president. But I digress. There is some spice, like I said. There is rivals to hesitant lovers, or hesitant friends to full-on lovers. I guess they kind of are hesitant lovers at some point. Again, I digress. I could talk forever about books, as you could probably tell. And could probably use an editor who knows what they're doing because I talk so much. But anyways, this is Red, White, and Royal Blue. It's so good. Highly recommend it if you haven't read it yet. And next up, number 4, is the lovely Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, whom I also adore. She's amazing. Oh, I have the Familiar sitting right here, which I still need to read. If you read it, let me know what you think because I need motivation to actually read it. Anyways, this book is about 6 deadly criminals, 1 impossible heist. And it's literally about what I just said. Of course, that is if you count these 6 teenagers as like deadly outcasts. Up to you, honestly. Read the book and let me know what you think. Our team is made up of a 16-year-old spy who is a knife enthusiast, an imprisoned and banished soldier dude, a college dropout who loves his gun and sharpshootery stuff. Sharpshooter is not a word, but you know what I mean. A young heart-renderer using her magic to survive the slums. Heart-renderer, if you're not familiar with the Grishas, she can basically just control people's bodies. She's like a bloodbender, if you will, if you are familiar with Avatar, which I hope you are, because it's great. But yeah, that's what she does. And there is also a mysterious chemist with a privileged past. I love him, he's great. And our notoriously brutal gang leader, Kaz Brekker, who you have probably heard of, and you have probably also heard of this book, or the show. The show. Netflix, yes. It's on Netflix. And they canceled it, and that's depressing. But, yet again, I digress and move on. So I mainly tell you about the characters because it is a character-driven story, less of a plot-driven story. And we have to ask ourselves, can these 6 individuals can they band together to save the world, or are they just going to bicker and argue the whole time? Because that's also possible with these guys. It really is. So my favorite thing was the characters. As I said, character-driven book. I love the banter. I love the relationships that form, both like platonic and romantic. The heist will keep you on your toes the whole time. I will say, for me, wasn't like the main interest. It was the characters, but the heist is still cool. Spice is a negative 20 out of 5. Our two main love interests literally never touch each other, which is fine because they are extremely traumatized, and neither of them can do that right now. They need to heal first. And you know what? If they never get to that point, that's okay. We're all healing from something. So, I wrote down 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know how I feel about that. Anyway, somewhere in the 4 range, 4.5. We'll give it a 4.5 out of 5. Love it. Deliciously good. I don't like that I said that. But it's really good. You may like it if you're into a heist novel, but it doesn't need to be like 100% realistic and understandable for you. The heist doesn't have to be the part that is your favorite. It can be the characters, or it can be the heist plus the characters, or the setting, or the vibes, things like that. So just basically, if you're a plot reader, you probably won't love this book. But if you love found family, if you love banter, if you love a traumatized character, there are plenty in here for you. There's a slightly brutal gang vibe. There is like a vibe of like working through your issues and finding your family. So if that sounds cool, you'll probably love this book. And if you've read it, let me know what you think, because it's really good and I love it. Okay, so unsurprisingly, Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Oh, I love Alice Oseman. Amazing. So this graphic novel, if you have not heard of it, which I also would have, I find it hard to believe if you've never heard of it, but it's okay. It's okay. That's why I'm here. So, a high schooler named Charlie is gay, and he doesn't hide it. But what happens when he falls for a rugby player, the star of the rugby team at his school? One that everyone tells him is 110 million% straight. No room for error. A boy who Charlie knows, in his heart of hearts, is straight. Right? He's straight. Right? Charlie was outed last year, and since then he's been trying to be out and proud, as the people say. But it's difficult when you were like severely bullied for your sexuality the year prior, and it's even more difficult when the only boy you've ever kissed refuses to even recognize you in the hallways, refuses to know you, doesn't say hi when you say hi back. Pretty tragic, honestly. But maybe Charlie's love life is taking a turn for the better when he has a friendship forming with Nick, our rugby player, and perhaps a little more than friendship comes along the way too. So my favorite thing is I could really relate to Nick. As you can tell, I can relate to the closeted bisexuals. I love it. Like, figuring out your sexuality is hard, and it's also very translatable. Is that a word? I don't know. It's transferable to experiences of growing up and figuring out who you are and what you want. And it doesn't just have to be like your sexuality. It could be so many other things as well. And I really liked that. And I also knew that they would end up happy together. Like, it's not one of those books that's just about the trauma for the trauma. Like, they're going to be happy, and I really love that. And also, Alice's art is great. Like, I don't know, maybe I just gave you, I kind of did just give you a little bit of a spoiler, I don't know. But, like, so sweet. And I gave this book a 5 out of 5 because it's amazing. Oh, I forgot to say the Spice rating. I mean, the first book is a solid 0, but if you keep reading the series, it may or may not increase a little bit. I'll give you a spoiler. It does increase. And you may like this book if you enjoy a coming of age story, a coming out story, kind of coming into yourself story, I suppose. I like that better. If you like comic books, graphic novels, if you love gay representation like I do, if you like pure friendships, mental health subplots, and if you're alright living through queer teens' tragic romantic skills. Hi, Charlie. Hi, Nick. Why you be like this? I don't know. Yeah, that's my interpretation of them and of being British. I'm so sorry for anyone who's British. The next book on our list is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This is the second book? Yes, second. I was going to say fourth. I mean, it's the fourth book I've talked about. Second book on my list. Second favorite. Okay. Yes, second favorite. Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. There we go. It's about a 30-something-year-old English witch. She has spent her whole life alone until she takes a mysterious job teaching 3 young witches magic in a hidden, secluded manor. Or mansion, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's a big house, really big house. Has a library in it, which I think is awesome. And in this world, witches are cautioned to isolate from one another for fear that the collection of magic in one place will become dangerous. And so what she's doing is, well, very frowned upon within the witch community, and honestly could be potentially dangerous for all she knows. Our MC, Mika Moon, which by the way is a great name. I love that name. I kind of wish my name was Mika Moon, but it's not. And that's okay. I like my name too. Obviously, she is willing to break these rules, but what will be the cost of breaking the rules? And what could the manor be hiding? Well, you'll have to read it to find out. So, my favorite thing is definitely the characters. I love Mika Moon, very sweet. She doesn't really fit perfectly into any sort of stereotype, or like sub archetype of like a female fantasy girly, which I appreciate because those are usually just like strong. I don't like feminine things. Yeah, or they're very like, I love being feminine. And those are both fine. But when that's really the only representation you get of like a female heroine, it can be a little bit annoying, I suppose. I love the little girls in this book. The magic system is amazing. I mainly just like witchy potiony things, and that's what this book had, so I was so here for that. I loved the ending. It was very pure and very sweet. I adore Mika. She's very complex. I think the main thing here was vibes. As it is with most urban fantasies, I feel like it's really vibes that carry the story. And the characters are always wonderful. But again, vibes be vibin'. So, there's no spice. I don't know why that took me so long to like figure out. I kind of wouldn't have minded it if there was. I feel like there were times when they kind of deserved a little spice, but it's okay. You know, book doesn't need spice to be good. 4.75 out of 5. I love this book. So amazing. You may enjoy it if you like a bit of urban fantasy, if you like the idea of found family, if you're more of a vibes and like character reader, and if the idea of collecting moonlight at midnight for your specialty potions sounds like a perfect evening, because that's basically this book in like a sentence, in an idea. Good. You should read it. I think you would like it. So that was that book. And now, number 1, what you've all been waiting for. Oh, so good, guys. It's so good. The Spirit Bares Its Teeth by Joseph Allen White. I think this is the least popular book out of all the ones that I've talked about, which is very interesting. I don't even know why I bought it. I think I just saw it in the bookstore and I was like, that looks really cool. I love the cover. And then I read what it was about and I was like, yeah, cool. I like a little horror, right? I could do that. I mean, yeah. Yeah, really good. And it's also signed. So I was like, totally gonna get that. Anyways, this is set in a fantasy world where those with purple eyes can see through the veil, which is basically just what divides the world between like the living and the dead. These people with purple eyes can see through that. And our main character, Silas, who is 16, has violet eyes and can see through the mist. But as a trans boy in 1883, he is destined to be married off to a suitor and become a dutiful wife and mother, which is obviously not what he wants. He wants to become a doctor. He wants to live as the man he is. He doesn't want to be a silent housewife married off to some rich dude because he has purple eyes and because he's seen as a woman. Right? That's not the life that he wants, and yet that's the life he's destined to have in this world. Without giving too much away, he is diagnosed with veil sickness, which is a disease of the mind that affects only women. Crazy, am I right? It's only women with violet eyes, and it drives them mad. But, similar to history, when oppressed groups are given these odd diagnoses, it's to keep them obedient and to keep them constrained within societal norms. It's not actually to help them, and they're not really real illnesses. Perhaps they have depression, or perhaps they're just outside of societal norms. That's kind of how these things go. And because of this diagnosis Silas gets, he is sent to a finishing school to recover and learn how to be a woman. As you can imagine, some crazy stuff happens at this finishing school. That is not what a normal finishing school would have. He discovers something truly horrifying going on there and has to make a tough decision, give in to society and what the school is teaching him and lose himself and his dignity in the process, or fight back against a repressive system and possibly lose his life, basically. And it's so good, and you should really, really read it. Please read it. My favorite thing is this book is like almost as much horrifying as it is heartwarming. It's heartwarming in a weird way. It's heartwarming in a representation kind of a way. Heartwarming in a this is a story that hasn't been told before. I mean it has. I'm not saying what Joseph Allen White is doing here is like completely new. These stories have been told, but I do think that they haven't been told enough. Please read it. It explores the horrors of what minority people were exposed to throughout history. For example, like eugenics, forced sterilization, forced institutionalization, forced health procedures, and health research that was not consented on and done very unethically and wrongly on minority people. So I love that the main character was autistic and transgender. I'm always here for some representation, especially some intersectional representation, because none of us are just one thing. I'm not just a woman. I'm also a queer woman. I'm also a neurodivergent woman. There's so much more to people than just a singular label. And I really appreciate it when authors include that. And I could relate to Silas in certain ways, being a queer woman and being neurodivergent. I am not trans and I am not autistic, but yet still those communities, I relate to them. And I relate to him finally meeting someone who was autistic for the first time. And he was like, so it's not just me. And he always wondered if his transness and his autism were like the same, if they had the same roots and the same cause, and that there's just something wrong with him because he was different from the other people around him. And when he meets someone who is just autistic and someone who's just trans, he's like, no, these are two separate parts of myself, and I see myself in other people, and I know I'm not alone, and I know that I am like, I know that I don't know, that I have pretense to exist, basically. There's other people like me, and I just thought that was so beautiful. I will say, big trigger warning for this book. It is a horror novel through and through. Like, that is the premise, it is the genre. It's very vivid. Lots of medical experimentation is talked about and sometimes performed vividly, like on the page. There's lots of sexism and transphobia, descriptions of gore and harm. I highly recommend reading trigger warnings, reading perhaps like the first chapter. And if that turns you off, then please don't continue reading. Because the first chapter is like a very minor precursor for everything else to come. So if yeah, basically if when he talks about gutting pigs because he's practicing to be a doctor, if that disturbs you, maybe this isn't for you. But it was very much for me. So, you know, to each their own. Spice level. That's so hilarious. No, there's no spice, but there's lots of horror. So if you call horror spiciness, then sure, there's spice. I gave this a 5 out of 5 because it's so good. You may like this if you're looking for a fantasy horror novel with lots of twists and turns. You never know what's coming. You literally never know what's coming, and you're always on your toes, and you cannot stop reading this book. So good. Perhaps I would consider it a thriller, though I don't really read thrillers, so I suppose I can't really tell you if it's a thriller or not, as I have no evidence. But it is a horror novel, and it is really good. If you also enjoy lots of like fun representation, yes, maybe not fun representation, kind of tragic representation. If you enjoy tragic representation, understanding yourself, finding likeness from yourself and others. If you also like badass characters, then you will probably love this book. Also, there isn't really romance. There's like a teeny tiny little baby romance. So, I don't know. There's really no romance. Sorry, guys. This is The Spirit Bares Its Teeth by Joseph Allen White, and you should read it if you want to. I'm not gonna force you to read it, obviously. I literally can't because I am here and you are there. But anyways, you should read it. So, those are my top 5 books ever. Thank you so much for getting to the end of this video and listening to me blab. Please comment, like, subscribe, whatever you feel comfortable doing. And please let me know your top 5 books, and if you've read any of these, which you honestly probably have because most of them are quite popular. But that's okay, because we read things that make us happy, and it's okay if there are other books people like, because that just means they're good books. So thank you. See you again in another video very soon. Bye!